we've been talking about Chris Pratt as we've been going through, and I think it's time we just kind of check in with the Chris Wars, man, because it's been a little while, and you know, Chris Evans, I think we've probably been talking about the most, especially as we've been checking in with things like Knives Out and Knives Out 2. I think we kind of mentioned him there. But I mean, I feel like we haven't really talked about the Chris's that much in general. So
Chris Pine for Wonder Woman 1984 as
yeah, that's
well.
right. I forgot about that. Oh
But
wow, I
Pratt,
blocked that movie out of my memory.
right?
God.
But Pratt, apart from Tomorrow War, which just came out, it really hadn't been anything outside of Marvel in a while. And same for Hemsworth. I feel like the last time I talked about Hemsworth outside of Marvel was Men in Black International, which
Mhm.
wasn't super positive. So yeah, I think it's an interesting point to check in with all of them because I think there's been a lot of progression and movement in the standings of the Chris Wars. Right, it's a fun thing to talk about. Even, obviously, it's quite arbitrary. We're just talking about them because they're all named Chris. They're all handsome white men. But I think 10, 12 years ago, they were coming up as leading men and largely auditioning for the same parts. So it does make sense a little bit to pit them against each other. Um, I know some people on the internet like to throw Chris Messina in this war as well. I think
Uh,
he's definitely, um,
a tier below.
yeah, he's definitely on like a different tour of duty. Like I like Chris Messina plenty, but these four I think are all we gotta talk about. They're at the pinnacle, and it's really funny to reflect back on where we've been with the Chris Wars because I feel like perhaps all four of them have been at the top at one point or another. So it's always cool to check in.
When would you have thought Pine was? Like I'm trying to think when.
Uh, I don't want to spoil the conversation, but I'm very high
Ooh,
in Chris Pine.
right now. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we'll circle back around. I guess who do you feel like is at the bottom right now? Because I think I have someone I pretty clearly put at the bottom.
Chris Pratt.
Yeah, he's number four for sure for me.
And that was not always the case. Remember when Chris Pratt moves beyond Parks and Rec guy, but also moves beyond supporting character in movies like Moneyball and Zero Dark 30.
Mhm.
The double whammy of Guardians of the Galaxy and Jurassic World really catapulted Chris Pratt. And there was talk, really just nothing substantiated, but there was talk, oh, he could be the new Indiana Jones. Maybe he'll be Nathan Drake from Uncharted. Like there's everyone was putting Chris Pratt in everything. And several years removed from that time, 6 years ago, it probably hasn't gone as well as I think people wanted. Not to mention there's been some controversy outside of his movie work. So yeah, he's kind of easily on my bottom, my fourth.
Chris Pratt. Just want to read off his 2014 into 2015. The Lego Movie,
Right.
Guardians of the Galaxy, and Jurassic World. All those are all three back to back. And then he does the Magnificent Seven, which I think people like, but
Yeah, so it's more
you
of a
know,
supporting turn.
yeah. And then Passengers, and then it's all Marvel, pretty much Marvel and
Yeah.
Jurassic World from there, and Lego World, obviously, or Lego movies. But he doesn't do anything else original until I guess he's voicing Onward and then the Tomorrow War.
Right.
So,
I wanted to like Passengers so much, but that's a movie that has a really fatal flaw at the end of the day. Um, yeah, and I would chalk that up as a miss. And it's funny, you think about all these guys, everyone kind of has a miss, right? Like Hemsworth, he has In the Heart of the Sea, he has Men in Black International, he has a miss. Pine, where's Pine's miss? Hemsworth kind of has a lot
mm,
of them too. Black Hat, the Michael Mann movie.
oh yeah,
Um, Bad Times at the El Royale, I liked, but that movie bombed. Um, yeah, he's interesting. But yeah, I think Pratt pretty clearly is at the bottom, like especially like as like the sheen of his voice work in the Lego movie has gone off. Like we'll get Jurassic World Dominion, whatever the third one's called, in 2022.
hmm
He'll be in Thor, Love and Thunder again, not to mention Guardians 3. But after that, there's like nothing on his calendar, which
hmm
would be surprising, you'd have to think, right?
I mean, I feel like Pratt should try to go back to TV for a little bit. Even if it's like a short series, something on HBO, maybe, but get a little something something going here. Because if you just keep doing these franchise movies. I feel like that's how you stay at the bottom of the Chris Wars, which I'm sure he's very worried about. But um, I think the hard part too is Thor: Love and Thunder is basically becoming like Thor plus Guardians of the Galaxy from
Right.
everything that we understand. So it's a Hemsworth led film that's gonna have Pratt pretty much in second fiddle, most likely. It's a tough look for Chris Pratt. All right, so you have Pratt number 4. Who's number 3 for you, Dave? It
This
gets
is
hard
tough.
here.
This is hard, and I feel like Pratt's probably like the most popular pick for four. I think in general he's like I said, like he's probably just the least well liked as a celebrity at this current time anyway. So he's pretty easy to put down there. It's hard though for three because I'm trying to be objective, and I think you got to say Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah, I had him there actually pretty easily. And the reason I think I have him down there is while Thor is great, I think as we talk about Infinity War and Endgame, he's pretty clearly, third behind Evans and Downey Jr. in that pecking order, even though they all got that nice battle against Thanos, who is inevitable at the
Right.
end of Endgame. But then you look here, Men in Black flop, uh, really bad. I mean, made a decent amount of money, but not well regarded.
Yeah.
Extraction, I think we both felt like the action was pretty cool, but is that really like a movie we want to go back to? We want to see more of? I
You
don't
could
know.
kind of cut and paste Hemsworth
Anyway,
out of that for someone else competent in action, as far as like a John Wick inspired approach to like visceral action
mhm,
filmmaking. Hemsworth himself doesn't make the biggest impression, although give him credit for the stunts. And like you said, Men in Black International, as well as Ghostbusters 2016. I actually
awesome.
think he's
Yeah.
not bad in either of those movies. He has shown, I think, a pretty solid ability at comedy, which has obviously been highlighted in the later Thor iterations. But those movies were not well received nor successful. So, I mentioned the other ones too, right? Black Hat, 12 Strong, uh, In the Heart of the Sea. These are all kind of flops. And on one hand, credit for trying to get out all these other kinds of movies. A lot of these are original
Mhm.
films, but his like star power outside of Marvel has plainly not come to fruition.
Yeah, and just looking here, I mean, what was the last movie he was in that we would say was really good? I mean, Bad Times at the El Royale had a lot of potential, but
Yeah,
I don't
it's
think.
okay. It's solid.
But I mean, what's the last like really good movie he was in?
I would have to go way back again, away from Thor Ragnarok, everyone loves. Apart from that, I would have to say Rush back in 2013, where he
That's
plays
crazy.
James Hunt, the Formula One driver. That's a Ron Howard movie that
Yeah.
I think does rip in its own regard. But and I guess critically you would say Cabin in the Woods as one of those like
Mm.
surprise horror gems, but that's 9 years old already. Crazy
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah, that's tough. And one of the factors we also have in here is the celebrity of it all. And I think Chris Pratt as a celebrity in the last year has had some people who are not so thrilled with some of his political stances, and he drew some ire for that. Hemsworth, I just haven't really even seen much at all as a
No.
celebrity. Beyond obviously his like Instagram pictures and not skipping or always skipping leg day, I should say. Um, Otherwise, I don't. I feel like he's not really out there as a celebrity at the moment. Also, tough to say after COVID. No one was really out there all that much.
Right, right.
Um, so then we're down to the top two, and it sounds like you have Pine at number one.
I do.
So maybe this is the time to make the case for Pine. Then we'll circle back to Evans.
Right. And I think Pine there's an argument against Pine, and that's because his franchise obligations have kind of ended. But then again, you could say the same for Evans, right? In Chris
Mhm.
Evans' case, he's bowed out of the Captain America role as far as we know. Um, some reporting that that might not be permanent of late, but as of now, Chris Evans is not Captain America anymore. Chris Pine is no longer James T. Kirk from Star Trek anymore, but that's not really his doing so much as it's uh, what Paramount's inability slash unwillingness to continue making that franchise. And the last we knew of that, Star Trek 4, when it was still being talked about, one point S.J. Clarkson directing it, one point Noah Hawley directing it, they were thinking of bringing back Chris Hemsworth's character as George Kirk, his father, which which would have been kind of a weird time like loop thing because of course Hemsworth is in the very first of these Star Trek movies and dies in the first scene. So that would have been something, right? But like due to like financial reasons, contract squabbles, Star Trek continuation of that franchise that began with J.J. Abrams is done, and now Pine doesn't have a franchise, right? Because we'd have to imagine his Wonder Woman obligations cannot
Sure.
continue into Wonder Woman 3. It was a bit of a walk to even have him in Wonder Woman 1984. Still liked him in Wonder Woman 1984. Pine himself was good, even if like the Steve Trevor of it all was kind of strange
Problematic.
and also morally questionable.
Oh man. That's a really good point. And I'm looking here and I'm thinking, what are like the standouts here? And the first one that really stands out to me, obviously, is Hell or High Water from 2016. That's the gem, right?
Yes,
But then
that
you
is a
look,
Best Picture nominated movie. None of these other guys have been in one of those, let alone the lead of one.
but then even looking forward from that, I mean, we have Hell or High Water, then we have Outlaw King, which we both really liked.
I love
And
Outlaw King.
I think he's great in that too. So I'm
As
gonna give
Robert the
him.
Bruce, of course, a Braveheart historical prequel, basically,
And then the next movie
or
after
sequel.
that
Sorry.
is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, where he played the Peter Parker who dies. I
Right.
mean, these are three great movies in like a 4-year stretch. And
Hmm.
then you're including Wonder Woman in that. Obviously, he's great in that. Uh, so then I guess I'm thinking because I'm thinking with Evans, he's been in a couple of really good movies too recently. At least
Well,
Knives Out.
it's really only been Knives Out because he also did Defending Jacob, that Apple
Yeah,
TV Plus series.
that's right.
Um, and Knives Out, I think, is an important thing for Evans because it's him doing a different speed than Steve Rogers. And he had been so busy as Steve Rogers that he was not doing much acting since the Marvel machine really picked back up. You look at that list of credits, there's really nothing there. But until you go back to like Snowpiercer, which of course everyone loves as a Bong Joon Ho movie, but it's been a while
Yeah,
for Evans. But he seems to be making up for lost time with a great turn in Knives Out, and then we have supporting or role ensemble role in the Adam McKay movie Don't Look Up. He'll be the voice of Buzz Lightyear in the Pixar film Lightyear, the prequel coming out next year,
hmm,
and he's also one of the leads alongside Ryan Gosling in The Gray Man, which is the Russo brothers' upcoming action thriller film, their first movie since Endgame. So
pretty
Evans is
good.
getting busy, thankfully. But we've only just started to really see it manifest.
Yeah, and so as I'm looking here, I'm thinking about Knives Out, and that really calls back to an early part of his career. With I guess not that early because he's been working for a long time, but mid part of his career, Scott Pilgrim versus the World, right?
That's
And I
right.
feel like that got
Mhm.
a lot of attention this past year because of the 10-year anniversary and just getting a lot of love. And I think for me, just also as a celebrity, Chris Evans just stands out as someone that I see out there more. I think
Yeah,
he has more star power than Pine. So for me, I think
he
he's
does.
still number one. But you made a really good argument for Pine. I think this is close at the top.
I'd also like to note that Pine has another supporting role coming up in Don't Worry, Darling. That's the upcoming Olivia Wilde film starring Harry Styles and Florence Pugh. And he's also apparently, I didn't really know this, he's the lead of the upcoming Dungeons and Dragons film from Jonathan Goldstein and John Francis Daley, which has been a long gestating project, but that is a talented directing duo to have in it. So that's cool.
Yeah. I
And there's
mean,
some other smaller movies that Pine as well as Hemsworth are involved in that are coming up. But yeah, I think what you said is right because Evans is, I think, clearly at the top as a celebrity.
yeah.
And I think it's really more about I think your taste. And if I think if we're looking forward, it's easier to argue for Pine.
I gotta say, I think the thing that stands out as we're talking about this is Pine and Evans have that ability to play that dick, play that villain. You know, you think about Pine in something like Horrible Bosses, and he's just
Mhm.
so like despicable, but also
This
kind of fun
means
in that.
war, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, and Pratt and Hemsworth are a little more goofy. You know, they kind of tend to lean more towards the comedy, and I think that doesn't work as well when you're looking for the quality of movies that they're putting out. So, um, yeah, this is a fun conversation though. It's a good thing to check in with. Maybe after we get some of these movies coming up in the next year, so we'll double back and see where we're at. But Evans and Pine at the top, Hemsworth and Pratt stock down.